These are not rock formations, and what you are looking at was never meant to exist. Look at Monument Valley from the air, not from a highway postcard, not from a film frame. From directly above, in the flat overhead geometry of a satellite image, where nothing is framed for beauty and everything is framed for truth. What you see are vertical columns of stone rising from a flat desert floor, hundreds of feet tall, flat on top, sheer on the sides, spaced across the landscape at irregular but recurring intervals, each one isolated, each one truncated at its summit as if something was removed from above. The surrounding floor is not jagged or erupted. It is swept. It is level. It is, in the geological vocabulary used to describe it, a pediment, a surface that was once higher and has since been eroded away. We are told this is erosion. Yeah, that wind and water carved this over millions of years. But that explanation hides a bigger problem. It is a coherent explanation. It is the explanation taught in every geology class in the United States. And for most people who hear it, it settles the question before the question is fully formed. Because erosion does not create this. Flat tops, vertical walls, clean cuts. Real erosion leaves chaos, not precision. Not just the flat floors of the valleys, the flat tops of the mesas themselves. When rock is subjected to millions of years of wind erosion, of freeze-thaw cycles, of differential weathering, it does not produce flat summits. It produces rounded caps, tapered spires, irregular profiles. The geological record of genuine erosion columns, hoodoos, spires, pinnacles, shows consistent tapering, consistent irregularity, with consistent evidence of material being progressively removed from every angle. What Monument Valley shows is something different. Columns that are wide, vertical, and terminated horizontally at the top, as if they were not carved by removal, but left standing after something else was taken away. Now, here is the theory no one wants to test. What if these are not rock formations at all? What if they are something else entirely? There is a hypothesis that has circulated in the margins of alternative geology and historical revisionism for at least a decade. It holds that the mesas, buttes, and isolated rock towers of the American Southwest are not erosion remnants at all. That they are instead the mineralized stumps of enormous petrified trees. Trees of a scale so far beyond anything in the modern biological record that the idea is, yet on first encounter, genuinely difficult to hold in the mind. Trees that once covered this continent in a canopy of a height we no longer have a reference point for. Trees that were, at some point in a history that is either very ancient or uncomfortably recent, cut down, burned, stripped, or harvested. And what remains, what we have been calling geology for 150 years, is the root structure, the base, the stump. The theory sounds extraordinary. What makes it worth examining seriously is the evidence. Begin with the internal structure of the mesas themselves. Inside these structures, the patterns do not just look geological, they look biological. Like growth, not layers. Like something that formed from within, not something that settled over time. And then there is the material itself. Should the same kind of mineral found in petrified wood appears here too? Not similar. The same. As if whatever these were turned to stone the same way trees do. Consider the geometry. Botanists who study ancient tree structures, particularly the basal root flare and the lower trunk geometry of large conifers, describe a characteristic profile, wide at the base, narrowing upward, with a roughly circular cross-section and a tendency toward vertical grain expression on the outer surface. The Great Buttes of the American Southwest match this profile with a consistency that is difficult to attribute to random erosion. Spider Rock in Canyon de Chelly, vertical, narrow, cylindrical, flat-capped. The Mittens of Monument Valley, wider bases, vertical walls, summits that do not taper but terminate. Cathedral Rock in Sedona, multi-spired, columnar, be internally consistent in a way that erosion from a uniform plateau rarely produces. The mainstream explanation for this geometry is joint patterns. The argument holds that the original sandstone was fractured by ancient tectonic stress along regular vertical joints, and that erosion followed those joints, leaving vertical walls where the rock was most coherent. It is a legitimate model. It explains some of what we see. But joint-controlled erosion produces arrays of columns that align in predictable geometric grids because joints are linear and systematic. The mesas do not align in grids. They are scattered, spaced, individuated, more consistent with organisms that grew from root systems than with a lattice of tectonic fracture lines. The pattern does not disappear when you expand the frame. It repeats. From the Tepuis of Venezuela, those enormous flat-top table mountains that rise vertically from the Amazon basin, isolated, sheer-sided, biologically distinct from everything around them, to the Deccan Traps of India, to the sandstone tower, karst of Geology in China, which the world now knows from a film because its imagery was simply too arresting to ignore. Every major terrestrial landscape that contains these vertical, flat-topped, isolated columnar formations has been assigned its own local geological explanation. Tepuis are attributed to Precambrian quartzite erosion. Jiangjiajie is attributed to quartz sandstone pillar formation. The American mesas are attributed to Permian sediment. Each explanation is local, technical, and sufficient to close further inquiry. None of them asks why the same shape keeps appearing across different rock types, different latitudes, different ages, and different erosion histories. The pattern repeats. What changed was the explanation. Here it is important to be precise about what is and is not being claimed. This is not an argument that a secret organization removed the history of giant trees from the scientific record. There is no document that needs to have been forged, no scientist who needs to have been silenced. The mechanism of concealment, if concealment is even the right word, is far more ordinary. It is the mechanism of category. When the first American geologists cataloged the Western formations in the 19th century, they were working within a framework that did not include petrified biological structures at a mesa scale as a live possibility. The category did not exist. So the formations were assigned to the nearest available category, which was geological erosion, and the classification calcified. Funding follows established categories. Peer review enforces established categories. The researchers most qualified to look at a mesa and ask whether it is biological rather than geological are paleobotanists and dendrochronologists, specialists who study ancient plant structures. They are not, as a rule, the people writing the geological surveys of the Colorado Plateau. The truth was not buried by design. It was buried by the ordinary weight of institutional momentum, categorical inheritance, and the professional cost of proposing something that sounds, on first contact, like it cannot possibly be serious. What would it take to verify or falsify this? The tools exist. A high-resolution isotopic analysis of mesa rock, compared directly to authenticated petrified wood from the same region, would reveal whether the mineralization signatures match. Three-dimensional structural mapping of mesa interiors, compared against the known internal geometry of large conifer specimens, both living and fossilized, would either confirm or eliminate the biological hypothesis. Ground-penetrating radar surveys of the base of major buttes could reveal whether there are root-like structures extending into the surrounding pediment, which is precisely what you would find at the base of a stump, and precisely what you would not find at the base of an erosion column. These studies have not been conducted, not because they would be technically difficult, but because the question has not been asked inside the institutions capable of asking it. And that is the most important thing to hold on to. The mesas have been photographed for 150 years. They have been painted, filmed, mapped, and analyzed. They appear on license plates and in automobile advertisements and in the background of 1,000 Western films. They are among the most visually documented landforms on Earth. And in all of that attention, in all of that looking, the question of their internal biological consistency has not been systematically pursued by the people with the equipment to answer it. The stone remembers. It does not care whether the category assigned to it is correct. The real question is not whether this hypothesis sounds strange. It sounds strange because the scale is strange. And we have been given no framework for taking the scale seriously. The real question is whether anyone with a mass spectrometer, a core sample, and the professional security to publish an anomalous result has ever actually looked, not at what these formations are supposed to be, but at what the evidence, taken without inherited assumptions, suggests they are. No one has tested it. No one has tried to prove it wrong. And until someone does, those formations are still there, waiting.